Hello friends, I'm Ellie, welcome to Cardboard Design. Today, let's listen to the fairy tales that I will tell you right here. First fairy tale, Puss in Boots. A miller had 3 sons, his mill, a donkey and a tomcat. The sons had to grind, the donkey had to get grain and carry flour away, and the cat had to catch the mice away. When the miller died, the 3 brothers divided their inheritance. The oldest received the mill, the second the donkey, and the third the tomcat, for there was nothing left for him. Thereon he was sad and spoke to himself.
But I have gotten all the worst. My oldest brother can mill, my second can ride on his donkey. What can I start with the tomcat? Let me make a pair of fur gloves out of his pelt, so it's over.
Listen,
Said the tomcat, who had understood everything what he said.
you do not need to kill me to get a pair of bad gloves from my pelt. Let only a pair of boots be made for me, that I can go out and be seen among the people. Then you will soon be helped.
The miller's son was in wonderment that the tomcat so spoke, but because the shoemaker just walked by, he called him in and let a pair of boots be measured for him. When they were ready, the tomcat put them on, took a sack, made the bottom of the same full of corn, but on the top a string, with which one could pull it close. Then he threw it over his back and went on 2 legs, like a human, out the door. In those days reigned a king in the land. He liked to eat partridges so much, there was a need that none were to be gotten. The whole forest was full, but they were so shy that no hunter could reach them. The tomcat knew that and considered to do his matter better. When he came into the forest, he made the sack open, spread the corn apart, but the cord he laid into the grass and led it behind a hedge. There he hid himself, snuck around and lurked. The partridges soon came running, and one after the other hopped into the sack. When a good quantity was in it, the tomcat pulled the cord closed, ran to and twisted their heads around. Then he threw the sack over his shoulder and went straight away to the king's palace. The watch cried,
Halt! Where to?
To the king.
answered the tomcat quickly.
Are you crazed? A tomcat to the king.
Just let him go.
Said another.
The king has often boredom. Maybe the tomcat makes him amused with his humming and spinning.
When the tomcat came in front of the king, he made a reverence and said,
My hair, the grap.
with that he named his long and distinguished name.
Lets himself be recommended to the Hare King and sends him these partridges that he just caught in slings.
The king, astonished over the beautiful fat partridges, knew not out of pleasure how to contain himself, and commanded that the tomcat be given as much gold out of the treasure chamber into his sack as he could carry.
That bring to your heron, and thank him again many times for his gift.
But the poor miller's son sat at home at the window, supported his head in his hand, and thought that he had spent his last for the tomcat's boots. And what large things will he be able to bring back? Thereon the tomcat stepped in, threw the sack from his hat, and tied it open and shook the gold in front of the miller.
There you have something for the hoots. The king also greets you and says many thanks to you.
The miller was glad over the wealth, without understanding rightly how it came to be. But the tomcat, as he took off his boots, told him everything. Then he said,
You do have money enough now, but it should not stay with that. Tomorrow I will put my boots on again. You will become richer still. I also told the king that you are a grap.
On the next day, the torn cat went, as he had said, well booted to hunting again, and brought the king a rich catch. So it went all days, and the tomcat brought gold home all days, and was so popular as one by the king, that he was allowed to come in and go out and prowl around in the palace where he wanted. One time the tomcat stood in the king's kitchen by the stove and warmed himself. Thereon came the coachman and cursed.
I wish King and the princess were at the executioner. I wanted to go to workshops and drink once and play cards. There I should drive them spazurin at the lake.
As the tomcat heard that, he snuck home and told his parents.
If a grap you want to be and become rich, so come outside with me to the lake and bathe yourself therein.
The miller did not know what he should say to that, but followed the tomcat, went with him, undressed splinter naked, and sprang into the water. But the tomcat took his clothes, carried them away, and hid them. No sooner was he finished with that, thereon came the king driving by. The tomcat immediately began pathetically to lament.
All merciful king, Bean Hare bathed himself here in the lake. Thereon a thief came and stole his clothes that lay on the shore. Now the hare grap is in the water and cannot come out. And if he stays in longer, he will catch cold and die.
When the king heard that, he called halt, and one of his people had to chase back, and of the king's clothes bring hat. The hare Graf put on the magnificent clothes, and because the king anyway for the partridges, that he thought to have received from him, held his worth, so he had to sit with them in the carriage. The princess was also not upset over it because the Graf was young and handsome, and she liked him quite well. But the tomcat went ahead and came to a large grass field, where over 100 people were making hay.
Who does this grass field belong to, you people?
Said the tomcat.
The great magician!
Listen, the king will soon drive by. When he asks who the grass field belongs to, so answer, the Gräfin. And if you do not do that, you will all be struck dead.
Thereon the tomcat went further and came to a grain field, so large that no one could oversee it. There stood more than 200 people and cut the grain.
Whose grain is this, you people?
The magician?
Listen, the king will drive by now. When he asks who the grain belongs to, so answer, the Gräfin. And if you do not do that, you will all be struck dead.
Finally, the tomcat came to a magnificent forest. There stood more than 300 people, felled the big oaks and made wood.
Whose forest is this, you people?
The magician?
Listen, the king will drive by now. When he asks who the forest belongs to, so answer, the Gräfin. And if you do not do that, you will all be killed.
The tomcat went still further. The people all looked after him, and because he looked so wonderly, and as a human walked in the booth, they were afraid of him. He soon came to the magician's palace, stepped boldly in front of him. The magician looked at him contemptuously, and asked him what he wanted. The tomcat made a reverence and said,
I have beard that you could transform yourself into every animal you chose by your own will. What a hound, fox, or even wolf concerns, that I will well believe, but of an elephant, that seems to me quite impossible, and therefore I have come to convince myself.
The magician said proudly,
That is a trifle to me.
and in that wink of an eye was transformed into an elephant.
That is much, but also in a lion.
That is also nothing.
Said the magician and stood as a lion in front of the tomcat. The tomcat made as if startled and cried.
That is unbelievable and unheard of. The same I would never had dreamt of coming into my thoughts, but more still, all else, it would be, if you could transform yourself into such a small animal as a mouse is. You can certainly do more than any other magician in the world. But that will be certainly too high for you.
The magician was very friendly from the sweet words and said,
Oh, John, dear catlet, that I can also.
and sprang as a mouse around the room. The tomcat was after him, caught the mouse with one jump and ate him up. But the king was still driving Spagerin with the Gräfin and the princess, and came to the large field.
Who does the hay belong to?
Asked the king,
The hare Gräfin.
cried all, as the tomcat had commanded them.
Thou have a pretty piece of land, Herr Graf.
Said he. Thereafter they came to the large grain field.
Who does the grain belong to, you people?
The hare Gräfin.
Yea, Herr Graf, large big estates.
Thereon to the forest.
Who does the wood belong to, you people?
The hare Gräfin.
The king was astonished even more and said,
Thou must be a rich man, Herr Graf. I do not believe that I have such a magnificent forest.
Finally, they came to the palace. The tomcat stood on top of the stairs, and as the wagon stopped below, he sprang down, opened the door and said,
Herr King, thou comest to the palace of my Herr, the Graf, that this honors him and makes him half his life day long.
The king stepped out and marveled at the magnificent building that was almost larger and more beautiful than his own palace, but the Graf led the princess up the stairs into the hall that was shimmering with gold and precious stones. Thereon the princess was promised to the Graf, and when the king died, he was king, but the booted tomcat became first minister. The story gives us a lesson about not wasting time complaining about our fate. Like the cat in the story, unlike the owner who complained about his situation, he quickly set out to find an opportunity to change his owner's life. This life always has opportunities for us to become better. It is important that you know how to take those opportunities and not waste them. The cat always knows how to grasp and take advantage of upcoming opportunities to help his owner marry the princess. Thanks to that, he can easily help his master have a better life. Second fairy tale, Tom Thumb. There was once a poor countryman who used to sit in the chimney corner all evening and poke the fire while his wife sat at her spinning wheel. And he used to say,
How dull it is without any children about us. Our house is so quiet, and other people's houses so noisy and merry.
Yes,
answered his wife, and sighed.
if we could only have one, and that one ever so little, no bigger than my thumb, how happy I should be. It would indeed be having our heart's desire.
Now, it happened that after a while the woman had a child who was perfect in all his limbs, but no bigger than a thumb. Then the parents said,
He is just what we wished for, and we will love him very much.
and they named him according to his stature, Tom Thumb. And though they gave him plenty of nourishment, he grew no bigger, but remained exactly the same size as when he was first born. And he had very good faculties, and was very quick and prudent, so that all he did prospered. One day, his father made ready to go into the forest to cut wood, and he said, as if to himself,
Now, I wish there was someone to bring the cart to meet me.
Oh, Father,
cried Tom Thumb.
I can bring the cart. Let me alone for that, and in proper time, too.
Then the father laughed, and said,
How will you manage that? You are much too little to hold the reins.
That has nothing to do with it, Father. While my mother goes on with her spinning, I will sit in the horse's ear and tell him where to go.
Well,
answered the father.
we will try it for once.
When it was time to set off, the mother went on spinning, after setting Tom Thumb in the horse's ear, and so he drove off crying.
Gee up, gee whoa.
So the horse went on quite as if his master were driving him, and drew the wagon along the right road to the wood. Now it happened just as they turned a corner, and the little fellow was calling out,
Gee up.
that two strange men passed by.
Look,
Said one of them,
How is this?
there goes a wagon, and the driver is calling to the horse, and yet he is nowhere to be seen.
It is very strange.
said the other,
We will follow the wagon and see where it belongs.
and the wagon went right through the wood, up to the place where the wood had been hewed. When Tom Thumb caught sight of his father, he cried out.
Look, Father, here am I with the wagon. Now take me down.
The father held the horse with his left hand, and with the right he lifted down his little son out of the horse's ear, and Tom Thumb sat down on a stump, quite happy and content. When the two strangers saw him, they were struck dumb with wonder. At last one of them, taking the other aside, said to him,
Look here, the little chap would make a fortune if we were to show him in the town for money. Suppose we buy him.
So they went up to the woodcutter, and said,
Sell the little man to us. We will take care he shall come to no harm.
No,
answered the father.
he is the apple of my eye, and not for all the money in the world would I sell him.
But Tom Thumb, when he heard what was going on, climbed up by his father's coattails, and perching himself on his shoulder, he whispered in his ear.
Father, you might as well let me go. I will soon come back again.
Then the father gave him up to the two men for a large piece of money. They asked him where he would like to sit.
Oh, put me on the brim of your hat,
Said he,
there I can walk about and view the country, and be in no danger of falling off.
so they did as he wished, and when Tom Thumb had taken leave of his father, they set off all together. And they traveled on until it grew dusk, and the little fellow asked to be set down a little while for a change. And after some difficulty they consented. So the man took him down from his hat, and set him in a field by the roadside, and he ran away directly, and after creeping about among the furrows, he slipped suddenly into a mouse hole, just what he was looking for.
Good evening, my masters. You can go home without me.
Cried he to them, laughing. They ran up and felt about with their sticks in the mouse hole, but in vain. Tom Thumb crept farther and farther in, and as it was growing dark, they had to make the best of their way home, full of vexation, and with empty purses. When Tom Thumb found they were gone, he crept out of his hiding place underground.
It is dangerous work groping about these holes in the darkness,
said he,
I might easily break my neck.
but by good fortune he came upon an empty snail shell.
That's all right,
Said he,
now I can get safely through the night.
and he settled himself down in it. Before he had time to get to sleep, he heard two men pass by, and one was saying to the other,
How can we manage to get hold of the rich parson's gold and silver?
I can tell you how.
cried Tom Thumb.
How was this?
Said one of the thieves, quite frightened.
I hear someone speak.
So they stood still and listened, and Tom Thumb spoke again.
Take me with you. I will show you how to do it.
Where are you, then?
Asked they.
Look about on the ground and notice where the voice comes from.
Answered he. At last they found him, and lifted him up.
You little elf,
Said they.
How can you help us?
look here.
Answered he.
I can easily creep between the iron bars of the parson's room and hand out to you whatever you would like to have.
Very well.
said they.
We will try what you can do.
So when they came to the parsonage house, Tom Thumb crept into the room but cried out with all his might.
Will you have all that is here?
So the thieves were terrified and said,
Do speak more softly, lest anyone should be awake.
but Tom Thumb made as if he did not hear them and cried out again.
What would you like? Will you have all that is here?
So that the cook, who was sleeping in a room hard by, heard it and raised herself in bed and listened. The thieves, however, in their fear of being discovered, had run back part of the way, but they took courage again, thinking that it was only a jest of the little fellows. So they came back and whispered to him to be serious and to hand them out something. Then Tom Thumb called out once more as loud as he could.
Oh yes, I will give it all to you. Only put out your hands.
Then the listening maid heard him distinctly that time, and jumped out of bed, and burst open the door. The thieves ran off as if the wild huntsmen were behind them, but the maid, as she could see nothing, went to fetch a light. And when she came back with one, Tom Thumb had taken himself off, without being seen by her, into the barn. And the maid, when she had looked in every hole and corner and found nothing, went back to bed at last, and thought that she must have been dreaming with her eyes and ears open. So Tom Thumb crept among the hay, and found a comfortable nook to sleep in, where he intended to remain until it was day, and then to go home to his father and mother. But other things were to befall him. Indeed, there is nothing but trouble and worry in this world. The maid got up at dawn of day to feed the cows. The first place she went to was the barn, where she took up an armful of hay, and it happened to be the very heap in which Tom Thumb lay asleep. And he was so fast asleep that he was aware of nothing, and never waked until he was in the mouth of the cow, who had taken him up with the hay.
Oh dear,
Cried he.
how is it that I have got into a mill?
But he soon found out where he was, and he had to be very careful not to get between the cow's teeth. And at last he had to descend into the cow's stomach.
The windows were forgotten when this little room was built,
Said he,
and the sunshine cannot get in. There is no light to be had.
his quarters were in every way unpleasant to him. And what was the worst? New hay was constantly coming in, and the space was being filled up. At last he cried out in his extremity as loud as he could.
No more hay for me! No more hay for me!
The maid was then milking the cow, and as she heard a voice, but could see no one, and as it was the same voice that she had heard in the night, she was so frightened that she fell off her stool, and spilt the milk. Then she ran in great haste to her master, crying,
Oh, master dear, the cow spoke.
You must be crazy.
answered her master, and he went himself to the cow house to see what was the matter. No sooner had he put his foot inside the door, than Tom Thumb cried out again.
No more hay for me! No more hay for me!
Then the parson himself was frightened, supposing that a bad spirit had entered into the cow, and he ordered her to be put to death. So she was killed, but the stomach, where Tom Thumb was lying, was thrown upon a dunghill. Tom Thumb had great trouble to work his way out of it, and he had just made a space big enough for his head to go through, when a new misfortune happened. A hungry wolf ran up and swallowed the whole stomach at one gulp. But Tom Thumb did not lose courage.
Perhaps
Thought he,
the wolf will listen to reason.
and he cried out from the inside of the wolf.
My dear wolf, I can tell you where to get a splendid meal.
Where is it to be had?
Asked the wolf.
In such and such a house, and you must creep into it through the drain, and there you will find cakes and bacon and broth, as much as you can eat.
And he described to him his father's house. The wolf needed not to be told twice. He squeezed himself through the drain in the night, and feasted in the storeroom to his heart's content. When, at last, he was satisfied, he wanted to go away again, but he had become so big that to creep the same way back was impossible. This Tom Thumb had reckoned upon, and began to make a terrible din inside the wolf, crying and calling as loud as he could.
Will you be quiet?
Said the wolf.
You will wake the folks up.
Look here,
Cried the little man.
you are very well satisfied, and now I will do something for my own enjoyment.
And began again to make all the noise he could. At last the father and mother were awakened, and they ran to the room door and peeped through the chink. And when they saw a wolf in occupation, they ran and fetched weapons, the man an axe, and the wife a scythe.
Stay behind.
Said the man, as they entered the room.
When I have given him a blow, and it does not seem to have killed him, then you must cut at him with your scythe.
Then Tom Thumb heard his father's voice, and cried.
Dear father, I am here and the wolf's inside.
Then the father called out full of joy.
Thank heaven that we have found our dear child.
And told his wife to keep the scythe out of the way, lest Tom Thumb should be hurt with it. Then he drew near and struck the wolf such a blow on the head that he fell down dead, and then he fetched a knife and a pair of scissors, slit up the wolf's body, and let out the little fellow.
Oh, what anxiety we have felt about you,
said the father.
Yes, Father. I have seen a good deal of the world, and I am very glad to breathe fresh air again.
and where have you been all this time?
Asked his father.
Oh, I have been in a mouse hole and a snail's shell, in a cow's stomach and a wolf's inside. Now, I think I will stay at home.
And we will not part with you for all the kingdoms of the world.
Cried the parents as they kissed and hugged their dear little Tom Thumb. And they gave him something to eat and drink, and a new suit of clothes, as his old ones were soiled with travel. Through the story, Tom Thumb, children should always know how to help their parents with things within their ability, and when encountering difficulties, do not be discouraged, but persevere and think to try to overcome all dangers. Third fairy tale, The 12 Brothers. There were once on a time a king and a queen who lived happily together and had 12 children, but they were all boys. Then said the king to his wife,
If the 13th child which thou art about to bring into the world is a girl, the 12 boys shall die, in order that her possessions may be great, and that the kingdom may fall to her alone.
He caused likewise 12 coffins to be made, which were already filled with shavings, and in each lay the little pillow for the dead. And he had them taken into a locked-up room. And then he gave the queen the key of it, and bade her not to speak of this to anyone. The mother, however, now sat and lamented all day long, until the youngest son, who was always with her, and whom she had named Benjamin, from the Bible, said to her,
Dear mother, why art thou so sad?
Dearest child,
she answered,
I may not tell thee.
But he let her have no rest until she went and unlocked the room, and showed him the 12 coffins ready filled with shavings. Then she said,
My dearest Benjamin, thy father has had these coffins made for thee and for thy 11 brothers. For if I bring a little girl into the world, you are all to be killed and buried in them.
And as she wept while she was saying this, the son comforted her and said,
Weep not, dear mother, we will save ourselves, and go hence.
But she said,
Go forth into the forest with thy 11 brothers, and let one sit constantly on the highest tree which can be found, and keep watch, looking towards the tower here in the castle. If I give birth to a little son, I will put up a white flag, and then you may venture to come back. But if I bear a daughter, I will hoist a red flag, and then fly hence as quickly as you are able, and may the good God protect you. And every night I will rise up and pray for you. In winter that you may be able to warm yourself at a fire, and in summer that you may not faint away in the heat.
After she had blessed her sons therefore, they went forth into the forest. They each kept watch in turn, and sat on the highest oak and looked towards the tower. When 11 days had passed and the turn came to Benjamin, he saw that a flag was being raised. It was, however, not the white, but the blood-red flag which announced that they were all to die. When the brothers heard that, they were very angry and said,
Are we all to suffer death for the sake of a girl? We swear that we will avenge ourselves. Wheresoever we find a girl, her red blood shall flow.
Thereupon they went deeper into the forest. And in the midst of it, where it was the darkest, they found a little bewitched hut, which was standing empty. Then said they,
Here we will dwell, and thou, Benjamin, who art the youngest and weakest, thou shalt stay at home and keep house. We others will go out and get food.
Then they went into the forest and shot hares, wild deer, birds, and pigeons, and whatsoever there was to eat. This they took to Benjamin, who had to dress it for them in order that they might appease their hunger. They lived together 10 years in the little hut, and the time did not appear long to them. The little daughter which their mother the queen had given birth to was now grown up. She was good of heart and fair of face, and had a golden star on her forehead. Once, when it was the great washing, she saw 12 men's shirts among the things, and asked her mother,
To whom do these 12 shirts belong? For they are far too small for father.
Then the queen answered with a heavy heart,
Dear child, these belong to thy 12 brothers.
Said the maiden,
Where are my 12 brothers? I have never yet heard of them.
She replied,
God knows where they are. They are wandering about the world.
Then she took the maiden and opened the chamber for her, and showed her the 12 coffins with the shavings and pillows for the head.
These coffins,
said she,
were destined for thy brothers, but they went away secretly before thou wert born.
And she related to her how everything had happened. Then said the maiden,
Dear mother, weep not. I will go and seek my brothers.
So she took the 12 shirts and went forth and straight into the great forest. She walked the whole day, and in the evening she came to the bewitched hut. Then she entered it and found a young boy, who asked,
From whence comest thou, and whither art thou bound?
and was astonished that she was so beautiful, and wore royal garments, and had a star on her forehead. And she answered,
I am a king's daughter, and am seeking my 12 brothers, and I will walk as far as the sky is blue until I find them.
She likewise showed him the 12 shirts which belonged to them. Then Benjamin saw that she was his sister, and said,
I am Benjamin, thy youngest brother.
and she began to weep for joy. And Benjamin wept also, and they kissed and embraced each other with the greatest love. But after this he said,
Dear sister, there is still one difficulty. We have agreed that every maiden whom we meet shall die, because we have been obliged to leave our kingdom on account of a girl.
Then said she,
I will willingly die, if by so doing I can deliver my 12 brothers.
No,
answered he,
thou shalt not die. Seat thyself beneath this tub until our 11 brothers come, and then I will soon come to an agreement with them. She did so, and when it was night the others came from hunting, and their dinner was ready.
And as they were sitting at table and eating, they asked,
What news is there?
said Benjamin.
Don't you know anything?
No.
They answered. He continued,
You have been in the forest, and I have stayed at home, and yet I know more than you do.
Tell us then.
They cried. He answered.
But promise me that the first maiden who meets us shall not be killed.
Yes.
They all cried.
She shall have mercy. Only do tell us.
Then said he,
Our sister is here.
and he lifted up the tub, and the king's daughter came forth in her royal garments with a golden star on her forehead. And she was beautiful, delicate, and fair. Then they were all rejoiced, and fell on her neck, and kissed and loved her with all their hearts. Now she stayed at home with Benjamin and helped him with the work. The 11 went into the forest and caught game, and deer, and birds, and wood pigeons that they might have food. And the little sister and Benjamin took care to make it ready for them. She sought for the wood for cooking and herbs for vegetables, and put the pans on the fire so that the dinner was always ready when the 11 came. She likewise kept order in the little house, and put beautifully white clean coverings on the little beds. And the brothers were always contented and lived in great harmony with her. Once on a time the two at home had prepared a beautiful entertainment, and when they were all together, they sat down and ate and drank and were full of gladness. There was, however, a little garden belonging to the bewitched house wherein stood 12 lily flowers, which are likewise called students. She wished to give her brothers pleasure, and plucked the 12 flowers, and thought she would present each brother with one while at dinner. But at the self-same moment that she plucked the flowers, the 12 brothers were changed into 12 ravens, and flew away over the forest, and the house and garden vanished likewise. And now the poor maiden was alone in the wild forest. And when she looked around, an old woman was standing near her who said,
My child, what hast thou done? Why didst thou not leave the 12 white flowers growing? They were thy brothers, who are now forevermore changed into ravens.
The maiden said, weeping,
Is there no way of delivering them?
No,
said the woman.
there is but one in the whole world, and that is so hard that thou wilt not deliver them by it. For thou must be dumb for 7 years, and mayst not speak or laugh. And if thou speakest one single word, and only an hour of the 7 years is wanting, all is in vain.
And thy brothers will be killed by the one word.
Then said the maiden in her heart,
I know with certainty that I shall set my brothers free.
and went and sought a high tree, and seated herself in it and span, and neither spoke nor laughed. Now it so happened that a king was hunting in the forest, who had a great greyhound which ran to the tree on which the maiden was sitting, and sprang about it, whining and barking at her. Then the king came by and saw the beautiful king's daughter with the golden star on her brow, and was so charmed with her beauty that he called to ask her if she would be his wife. She made no answer, but nodded a little with her head. So he climbed up the tree himself, carried her down, placed her on his horse, and bore her home. Then the wedding was solemnized with great magnificence and rejoicing, but the bride neither spoke nor smiled. When they had lived happily together for a few years, the king's mother, who was a wicked woman, began to slander the young queen, and said to the king,
This is a common beggar girl whom thou hast brought back with thee, who knows what impious tricks she practices secretly. Even if she be dumb and not able to speak, she still might laugh for once, but those who do not laugh at bad consciences.
At first the king would not believe it, but the old woman urged this so long, and accused her of so many evil things, that at last the king let himself be persuaded, and sentenced her to death. And now a great fire was lighted in the courtyard in which she was to be burned. and the king stood above at the window and looked on with tearful eyes because he still loved her so much. And when she was bound fast to the stake, and the fire was licking at her clothes with its red tongue, the last instant of the 7 years expired. Then a whirring sound was heard in the air, and 12 ravens came flying towards the place, and sank downwards, and when they touched the earth they were her 12 brothers, whom she had delivered. They tore the fire asunder, extinguished the flames, set their dear sister free, and kissed and embraced her. And now as she dared to open her mouth and speak, she told the king why she had been dumb, and had never laughed. The king rejoiced when he heard that she was innocent, and they all lived in great unity until their death. The wicked stepmother was taken before the judge, and put into a barrel filled with boiling oil and venomous snakes, and died an evil death. The story of 12 princes brings many good lessons about life, praising the good qualities of people. Do you like the stories I tell? See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.